天下无边无际的有情众生速得无上正等觉圆满佛国，以及方便广大灭诸生动机，并且如理如法的谛听。
Please listen to the teaching by cultivating the two supreme motivations, the vast intention of the Mahayana Bodhicitta, and the vast method of the secret mantra Vajrayana, so as to be able to liberate all sentient beings as fast as space to the state of the unsurpassed Buddhahood.
中文的在几页？你们有没有记好？好像没有记好。22啊。如果不是那样，应该是220，好像。220的下面。哦，对对对，错。那我们今天讲的是龙欽心髓前行引导文，分2，外加行以及内加行里面呢，我们现在讲到的是内加行。内加行里面呢是皈依发心，然后就是金刚萨埵曼达拉上师相应法等。现在我们呢是在那个第2个发心里面。发心里面呢是分修四无量心以及修菩提心。修四无量心，然后就是发胜义菩提心、殊胜菩提心以及愿行菩提心之学处，分3个。这个里面呢，我们现在是在修四无量心里面。修四无量心里面呢，也是修舍无量心、修此无量心、修悲无量心、修喜无量心里面。今天我们是在修悲无量心里面。
So we will continue on with the Ngondro, Longchen Nyingtik Ngondro preliminary teachings, which has 2 parts. We're currently on part 2, the inner preliminary, which also have 4 subjects. They are taking refuge, arousing bodhicittas, practice of Vajrasattva, mandala, and Guru Yoga. We're currently on chapter 2, arousing bodhicittas. Within the chapter, we will be touching on the subject of training the mind in the 4 boundless qualities, and also training in arousing of the bodhicitta, training in the precept of the bodhicitta, and also the aspect of the aspirational bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta. We're currently on the first section where the training the mind in the 4 boundless qualities, which include meditation on impartiality, love, compassion, and sympathetic joy. We're currently on meditation on compassion. So if you follow English text, it's on page 208.
然后呢，在这个悲无量心的里面，上次我们讲了一部分，以及就是讲了一些巴布鲁摩羯在这里讲的一些公案，就是在他自己看到的一些公案，然后举这些例子，就是讲了一些这些故事。然后呢，接下来就是继续再讲有些地方，比如说在藏地有些地方呢做一些邪肉的供养，那这些呢是不是真正的佛的教法？这些都是不如法的。所以呢，现在今天就是再继续讲，这个话题。
So in our last class, we have talked about several koans based on Ngondro Rinpoche's personal experiences and what he have observed surrounding his fellow practitioners or the preceptors or practitioners, and how they have been upholding their precepts. So today we will continue to elaborate on the offerings of the flesh and blood and how certain cases is really not being practiced according to the scriptures. So we will elaborate on what's considered according to the scripture and what's not.
然用他一西巴山等的萨比下着空球那么的不西巴等家就送的回呢，们中的无呢的们的和萨比下上呢，马的那个的人的，假如这种去把他们去康松去甚至他们去那个这边马人的这位，我公的去把那另人去上的这位等住。三没把就三年下着空球把是把，假如去比他没的，就就是话的。刚是里拉跟你明白完，多把跟起一点门进来，有人心情老把是那样，突击前头基本他没多是很的。这里说，如果不是那样，这样从这里开始啊，如果不是那样，则如吾等他波仁波切所说，将刚杀的。温热血肉摆放在坛城中，那么一切智慧天尊将会昏厥。又说，此外，若引请智慧天尊后，以刚杀的血肉供养，则犹如在母亲面前杀他的儿子一样。比如请母亲做客，如果将他的儿子杀了。并将其肉放在他面前，请他食用，那么母亲会不会喜欢呢？如同一切佛及佛子对一切众生，犹如独子之母般慈爱的罪孽，杀害任何一个被恶业所转、无有思维的旁生后，作为血肉供养，诸佛不可能欢喜。如祭天菩萨说，变身着火柱，以欲乐众生。若伤诸有情，云何悦诸佛？这里就是要继续讲，在以前在藏地有一些就是做血肉供养的这样。其实血肉供养的这些做法呢，不是佛教的一种做法，是最古老的在藏地的一个，大家可能都知道，就是本教的一个做法，都会做一些血肉的这样的供养这样。后来呢，有些其他可能就是佛教里面也是有一些就是在学他们这样去做一些这样相应的供养。因为这样呢，就是巴特仁波切在这里就特别的强调。如果是你们想要做这个血肉的供养的话呢，这个根本不是诸佛菩萨的这个意愿，也不是佛的教法。他这里举的例子就是诸佛菩萨们对一切众生，就好像一个母亲对自己的独子怎么样的慈爱一样的，所以一切诸佛菩萨对一切众生是非常慈爱的。那我们将一个非常慈爱的孩子杀了，然后请他的母亲做客的话呢，那会是一个什么样的状态？那他的母亲会不会喜欢？这是不可能喜欢的。如同一样的，如果说我们做血肉的供养的话，诸佛菩萨不可能喜悦的。这里不要这样讲。
The incomparable Dr. Rinpoche said that taking the still warm flesh and blood of a freshly slaughtered animal and placing it in the mandala would make all the wisdom deities faint. It is also said that offering to the wisdom deities the flesh and blood of a slaughtered animal is like murdering a child in front of its mother. If you invite a mother for a meal, then set before her the flesh of her own child. Would she like it? Would she not like it? It is with the same love as a mother for her only child that the Buddha and Bodhisattvas look on all beings of the three worlds. Slaughtering an innocent animal that has been the victim of its own bad actions and offering its flesh and blood to them is therefore no way to please them. As the Bodhisattva Shantideva says, just as no pleasure can bring delight to someone whose body is ablaze with fire, nor can the great compassionate ones be pleased when harm is done to sentient beings. So the type of offering made out of flesh and blood is not a typical Buddhist practice. It was never according to the scripture and the teachings of the Buddha. It was widely practiced, however, by the Bonpos in the old Tibetan time. So historically, Bonpo practitioners would do vast offerings according to the flesh and blood of the slaughtered animals to bring benefit to the practitioners or their patrons. And then eventually it spread out so to a point that certain or some Buddhist practitioners would adopt the same type of offerings in their practice. However, this is not originated from Buddha's teaching. So here in the scripture it says, no wisdom deities or no Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will take joy with such an offering, because it is like offering them the flesh and blood of their own child, just like you're slaughtering the mother's child in order to serve the mother the meal. So it completely displeases the wisdom deities and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It's impossible for them to take joy whatsoever in any such offerings.
Dina sabi shatal kona la Longchen shamchu tong chongchu shidi tongma somchu so shite ta yishi bar nam dang delpen tong chu nam jang shangchu senwa tata yimbe de tata shampin dansa ta le simchin sabi churzi la jiba sta ji ju shokzan dayong mani Napshoji Tanjing Tu Chi Sapi Shat Gumu Shatok Gumu La Gaba Simchin Lang Nopa Le Stopper Zumba Tetok Dir Dine Shatok Choba Shibala Longshute Onikov So Mancho Sheba Dir Jisen Johnson Tanjing Tanvere Dub Stopper Simchin Lang Nopa Bazu Shit Natsatong Yen Jok Lover Dongjong Dir Young Mancho Sheba de One Shatokon Chopaton, Chochu Shibi, Perezi Pambatar Shedze. 所以，如果自己一边享用心杀众生的血肉，一边做血肉供养，起护法神，因为那些智慧天尊护持佛教的护法神全部是菩萨勇士。 所以他们不仅不会享用这些犹如摆在屠夫面前的血肉，甚至也不会靠近那些喜欢温热血肉、横食金钱与损害众生之恶业黑法方面的大力鬼神，反而会聚集在那里享用那些血肉供品。暂时他们会跟随那些念诵 血肉仪轨的人，并且承办些维护其为的顺延，但恒时唯有损害众生，使他们突然生病。什么人着魔？骤然着魔。那些人又来念血肉仪轨，做血肉供养，他们表面上 做些暂时的利益，他们二者互帮互足，形影不离。鬼神如同罗刹来前放哨一般，唯一贪食、贪财、贪利之心做邪肉仪轨的人，则因鬼神神差 而遮蔽了以往具有所有的出离心、厌离心、清净心、信心以及正法光明。这里呢就是很清楚的讲到了这个我们所说的世间的护法，或者是世间的神鬼的差别。这里主要讲的就是世间的这些我们所谓的真正的护法神。我们所说的护法神的话，这里也讲了，大部分都是诸佛菩萨的化身，或者是大家都是有维持誓言的，莲花生大师降服了他们。以前他们虽然是鬼神之类，但是呢被莲花生大师降服了以后呢，他们也是持誓言的，密宗誓言的这样的护法神。所以对他们来说的话，他们根本不会护持就做邪肉供养、做恶业的这些人，但是不可能会护持这些的。那不可能护持这些的话，那他们比如说有些做这个邪肉供养的，为什么他们好像还是有一些保护者呢？这里就讲得很清楚，这个是因为在很多鬼神，他们是专门去损害众生的一些鬼神，就反而他们会招来这一类的鬼神。那这一类的鬼神呢，因为他们喜欢损害众生，他们喜欢这样血肉的这个食物所以呢，就他们为了利益自己，他们就会帮这些做血肉供养的这些人呢，给他们一些暂时的利益，可以帮助他们一些好像眼前的一些小细微的事情。因为鬼神跟人类也是不一样的，所以好像是鬼神他们达不到的目的，可能人的类可以帮他们达到一些，但是人类有些达不到的目的，他们可以帮助达到一些。这样一来呢，就是像做这些邪道的这些人呢，他们跟鬼神就是好像就是勾结起来就是鬼神也会跟他们一些利益，然后他们也做一些这样邪肉的这样的供养，所以他们的彼此就好像就是彼此帮忙一样。但是真正上来说，这是不是佛法呢？这个完全不是佛法，它是完完全全违背了佛陀的教义。
If you perform rituals like the offering prayer to the protectors using only the flesh and blood of slain animals, it goes without saying that the wisdom deities and the protectors of the Buddha's doctrine, who are all pure bodhisattvas, will never accept those offerings of slaughtered being laid out like meat on butcher's counter. They will not even come anywhere near. Instead, powerful evil spirits who like warm flesh and blood and are ever eager to do harm will gather round the offering and feast on it. For a short while after a practitioner of such red offerings has done his work, people may notice some minor benefits. But since the spirits involved are constantly harming others, they are liable to cause sudden problems and sicknesses. Again, the practitioners of the red rituals will make his appearance and offer flesh and blood, and again that will help for a little while. This is how evil spirits and practitioners of the red rites become inseparable companions who always support each other. Like beasts that prey on the prowl, they roam around, upset solely by their urge to consume flesh, gnaw bones, and seek ever more victims. Possessed by evil spirits, practitioners of such rituals lose whatever disillusionment with samsara and thirst for liberation they may have had before. Whatever faith, purity of perception, and interest in Dharma they once had, these qualities all fade away until the point comes when even the Buddha himself, flying in the sky before them, would arouse no faith in them. And even the sight of an animal will, with all its inner, sorry, I read past it, sorry. Okay. So here it talks about making offerings to the practitioners or the worldly God, and how it's different from the practitioners that we know of, who are the actual emanation of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or they either are emanations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or they are those who used to be worldly deities, however they were tamed and subjugated by Guru Rinpoche and bound to oath. So they are oath-bound practitioners who has, due to their oath, they vow to protect Buddha, the practitioners of the Buddha Dharma. So there's no way whatsoever for them to do any harm to sentient beings. Then you may ask, since most people wouldn't know the difference, you may ask, so how come after we provide such a red rice, then we experience benefit? Why is it even helpful if that's such a wrongdoing? And it is because of the fact that offering warm flesh and blood will invoke these type of worldly deities. So you're actually calling out to them, to your presence, and praying for them to bring benefit to you for your worldly matters. So in order for themselves to be benefited from these offerings, so to feast on these offerings to quench their hunger, they would do something, according to their own miraculous powers or clairvoyance, which human beings don't have, to kind of stretch out and help human beings with whatever they're requesting. So they're actually feeding off of each other, for the protectors or the worldly deities to feast on these red offerings, and for the human beings to be able to reap temporary help or benefit through this offering. So they kind of become the culprit to each other. So they support each other in this way and eventually become inseparable. And this is completely against Buddha's teachings, or the practices.
所以呢，在这里讲，如果是做这样的喜寿的这样的供养的话，以前比如说是一个人他，对三宝也有一些信心，好像也产生了一些出离心，就算有一些菩提心的话，或者亲近心的人，如果是做这样的事情的话，他因为那个业力会把这些全部都遮蔽了，他菩提心也可能就不见了，然后就是慈悲心也没有了，亲近心也没有了，信心也会退失。在这里就是特别强调的这些，因为我们还没有真正的达到一地菩萨的时候呢，之前的这些我们的信心也好，亲近心也好，菩提心也好，都还不稳固。所以呢，我们在这个过程当中一直要精进，要维持。真正达到了一地菩萨以后，那我们的信心呢，这些全部都就会，因为证悟了空性以后，就会稳固。在这个之前的话，我们可能有菩提心，有一些信心，这些都是我们不是很稳固的。我们要常常维持这个稳固，维持这个我们的信心稳固的话是稳固的。怎么说呢？它的条件的话呢，最主要也是常常祈祷上师三宝这一个。第二个呢，就是常常跟随这个好的道友，好的团队，然后呢，这样一起的话呢，这样可以就是说帮助我们维持，就算有时候自己有点散乱，但是呢，有在这个上师道友的常常在这样的旁边的话，因为这样的缘故，我们的信心呢，这些亲近心呢，各方面都不会退失。这些，然后这些是非常非常重要的。那在这些的情况之下，然后自己再精进的话就比较容易了。所以呢，我们一个世俗人的话，我们的信心这些各方面好像有时候看起来好信心也很强，亲近心也很有，但是有时候看起来什么都没有，这个就是世俗人的。所以我们的见地这些都是不稳定。所以呢，我们就是依靠常常祈祷上师三宝和跟随上师道友，常常有这样好的这个道友一起，这个是非常重要的。
So for those who seem to used to have some certain faith towards the three jewels, and they may have cultivated renunciation to some certain degree, and they may seem to sustain some sort of a pure vision towards Buddha Dharma. However, it can still be very fragile and subject to change based on the circumstances. So unless one has reached to the first umi of bodhisattva, everything is still very unstable. Your faith, your bodhicitta, your pure view, and your sense of renunciation, all these fundamental training and practices may still be stable unless you have reached the first umi of bodhisattva. Once you have attained the first umi of bodhisattva, especially after you have attained realization of the emptiness, then that is when it becomes stabilized. So before we reach that point, how do we sustain our bodhicitta, sustaining our faith and our pure view? What we have to do is to constantly pray to our guru and the three jewels, and then we have to follow the right sanghas where we could get motivated and encouraged and see how other people embody these values. Therefore, even if we become distracted at some point, because we're constantly surrounded by such a guru and such a sangha, a group of sangha, then that can kind of pull us back and be centered again and continue to keep our practice to sustain our bodhicitta, sustain our faith, renunciation, and our view. We may occasionally observe some ordinary people. They seem to demonstrate having strong faith toward the three jewels, and yet later on, very quickly, that seems to fade away. And I would say that is all because they haven't stabilized their view. They haven't stabilized all these fundamental training.
所以呢，我们平时我们跟什么样的朋友在一起，这也是非常重要的。以前的高僧大德们就常常会提到，就是道友，道友。平时以前那个宝瑞宝在讲课的时候，有时候会讲到，一个小偷的话呢，其实他的周围的人，他喜欢的朋友，喜欢聊天的对方，都是基本上就是小偷。他因为他喜欢这样的话题，而且他周围的人就是这样。然后一个喜欢做生意的人呢，他因为常常喜欢谈这一类的事情，他的周围的人也就是全部是那个做生意的人。如果是一个喜欢文思修的人呢，他周围的朋友也就是常常就是喜欢讨论一些讲一些这样的话题的人。所以我们在修行的过程当中也是跟什么样的人接触也是非常重要的。比如说一个人曾经不是这样的修行者，但是呢，如果是跟随了一些就是喜欢文思修的这样的道理的话呢，慢慢就是常常谈到这类的事情的话，在自己的相续当中也会就是染上一些这样好的习气、好的习性。就好像一般的木头，你把它扔到这个檀香的树林里面的话，虽然刚开始它是一般的木头，但是扔在一个檀香的树林里面的时候，久而久之，它也会散发出就檀香的那种香味出来，一样的道理。所以呢，我们在修习佛法的过程当中也是一样的。如果是我们以前不是那样的，没有关系，我们都不是，但是呢，慢慢的，我们也是比较注重道友，从那跟随，就是说，真正的在文思修行、求解脱的道友，这样在一起的时候呢，这样就是对我们的信心各方面都会有很大的帮助的。所以这个是也是非常非常的重要的。如果是我们是常常在修行，然后就文思修的，但是呢，一走出这个佛堂的门口以后，就是常常就是在跟一些完完全全跟着文思没有关系的人在一起的话，这也会影响到我们的修行。 因为就是常常跟那样的人聊天讲话的时候呢，在我们相续当中的这些信息呢，这些就久而久之就好像会慢慢的淡化，所以我们一定要维持、保持这样亲近的或者这样的道友在一起，偶尔聊聊天呢。当然，在这个像现在的这样的环境，你不可能说是每天你讲话的对境都是讲这个佛法僧三宝的或者文思修的，这是不可能的。但是呢，要保持一个自己的怎么说呢，拿捏一个中间点，不要常常就在那样的环境里面，偶尔没有关系，但是呢，就是也要维持一些自己在跟这个修学文思修这样的道友偶尔聊聊天讲一讲三宝文思修佛法这样的事情的话，这个也是对我们修行的这方面有很大的帮助。
It is equally important what type of friends you usually hang out with. And this also implies the importance of your Sangha, the group of friends that you're practicing with. His Holiness Nyingtik Rinpoche used to tell us an example, how a robber who are completely preoccupied by stealing people's belongings, and naturally he or she will be attracted to the like-minded people who are constantly thinking or seeking the opportunity to rob off from people. So naturally they will gather around and talk about similar subjects. And similarly, business people, since they're all about making profits, they will be naturally drawn to like-minded people who getting ideas about how to do business to make money. So they naturally form a group and then constantly brainstorming about the idea of making profit. So similarly, if you are constantly surrounded by practitioners of Buddha Dharma who are constantly deliberating, learning, contemplating, and meditating, and doing their practices, so that's naturally, if that's what you think is very important to you, then naturally you will be drawn to these type of people, and then wanting to connect with them, and then brainstorming about Buddha Dharma, and be exposed to this atmosphere of learning, contemplating, and practicing. Therefore, since we are all on the path of attaining liberation, it is important for us to recognize who we should be who we should be with. So if we're able to secure a group of friends who have the same preference of being surrounded by the Dharma teachings and constantly thinking of reflecting and being inquisitive of the teachings and finding opportunity for practices, then this is what you will constantly brewing on doing. Just like a piece of log or a piece of wood being placed in the juniper woods, over a certain time, this piece of wood would also be permeated with the aroma or the scent of juniper. So try to see what you're like and what your circle of friends are like. If you haven't really been doing much on being, socializing with the like-minded people, especially people who are your Sangha, who is focusing on learning, contemplating, and practicing, then that's okay. Going forward, we can be a little more mindful of who we're associating with. If you're surrounded by followers of Buddha Dharma who really uphold the importance of attaining liberation, then naturally over time your own motivation to seek liberation will be sustained and strengthened. And I know some of you, you are very, wanting to come here and learn to the best of your possibility. And then you will be very focusing in listening to the teaching and doing all the practice. And as soon as you get out of the center, then you could fall back to your normal daily life, and you may associate with friends who are not Buddhists. So just to become a little mindful of how you use your time to associate with with people who can be of benefit to you in this regard. So you may not be able to really, do a very clear allocation of your time to decide who you're hanging out with and who you're not. So it's going to take some time, but it's a good way to practice mindfulness around who you want to associate with and who can actually bring benefit to your learning and practicing and contemplating of Buddha Dharma. So occasionally, there will be, you will have need to still continue to hang out with your friends who are not Buddhists, who are not interested in Buddha Dharma, and that's fine. So just find the middle ground where you can be equally exposed, having this relaxed time with your friends who may or may not be Buddhist practitioners, and yet with probably the same amount of time, you will have opportunity or time to socialize with Buddha's Dharma practitioners, which is really conducive to your own learning.
所以呢，除了诸佛菩萨之外，一个凡夫人士平时修行修得再好的，如果是周围全部都是世俗的一些很多的烦恼围绕的话呢，这是一定会污染的，我们的相续是会被污染的。所以呢，像菩萨、诸佛菩萨他们就不会的，他们是可以单打独斗的，他们在轮回里面是不会被污染的，不管在哪里什么样的环境，他们的相续是不会被污染的。但是呢，像我们世俗人的话，那就会被污染的，所以我们一定要谨慎，我们一定要就是说精进，常常意念到上师三宝，然后呢就是跟随好的道友，这样的话这是非常对一个修行者是很重要的。
So unless you have attained the level of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as an ordinary person, however great your practice is, however profound your practice has attained, you are still at risk of being tainted. Your mind stream is still at risk of being sullied or tainted by these worldly, worldly activities and thinkings that are not relevant to Buddha Dharma. Therefore, I would urge you to be careful and be diligent and constantly think about and pray to your gurus and the three jewels and spend time with the right Sangha who are conducive to your Dharma learning. So then that way you will be able to protect your own mind stream from being sullied.
Shiba Tolongi, or Jitsupshaki, Stalta Zirkur, Revazig, she, Handil, Dong Tok Shiba, Nani Dong Shino, Yopi, Nim Changjans, Human Tau the Nera, Bump after Lua and Yona, Lingenji, Kai Jones, Markham, Handi, Marum, put the state, the same change to Stola, Omba, Chop on the Junko Lasso, Jevalin Bayins. 即便佛在空中飞行，也不生信心，哪怕掏出众生的肠子，他也丝毫不生悲心，犹如落叶的 罗刹奔普战场一样，面红耳赤，愤怒冲冲，性情粗暴，勾心斗角，因作为鬼神的主办，自己认为诵咒有力，具有加持而心生傲慢。这些人死后只能是如投石般立即堕入地狱，或者以恶业转生为凶狠鬼神的眷属，肆意刺杀众生，或转生为摇阴豺狼等唐僧。所以呢，在这里讲的就是像做那些血肉的这些供养的，其实这个藏地是没有那么庞大的，但是像尼泊尔印度就有很多。我想大家都知道，每年就是有一个季节，他们想杀那个成千上万的那个众生呢，每年都有这样的。好像去年尼泊那个好像一个组织就是保护这个动物的一个组织，好像抗议，然后后来好像他们不再那么大型的这个杀业了。说每年他们那个是好像几十万头牛跟羊这样同时这样杀，做这个邪恶的供。所以呢，像这样的话是非常非常可怕的。那这些人的话，就是死了以后，就是只能说像就是扔石头一样的，就直接堕入地狱，或者是会投身到这些恶魔鬼的这个眷属，然后呢继续做这样的恶业，或者是这里说是像鹦鹉豺狼、虎豹，这些都是杀生的生命，这个就是等流果，因为他今生喜欢这样杀生，所以呢，因为这个果他来世再投身这样的杀生的这样一个人，所以当这些杀生他的业力到了一定的程度的时候，就直接下无间地狱，就是很最下层的地狱里面就要受这个极大的痛苦，就是这样。
Whatever faith, purity of perception, and interest in Dharma they once have, these qualities all fade away until the point comes when even the Buddha himself, flying in the sky before them, will arouse no faith in them. And even the sight of an animal with all its innards hanging out would arouse no compassion. They are always on the lookout for prey, like killer Rakshasa, marching to war, their faces inflamed, shaking with rage, bristling with aggression. They pride themselves on the power and blessing of their speech, which comes from their intimacy with evil spirits. As soon as they die, they are catapulted straight into hell, unless their negative actions are still not yet quite sufficient for that, in which case they are reborn in the entourage of some evil spirits preying on the life force of others, or as hawks, wolves, and other predators. So in Tibet, there's not as much offerings of flesh and blood anymore. But in India and Nepal, it was still so prevalent, and every year tens of thousands of goats or oxes are being killed to make such an offering. Until recently, I think it was last year or this year, the Organization of Animal Protection somehow made it successful to put them to stop from killing in this massive scale. So that practice has been banned.
当然，这些是不是佛教徒？那是他们另外他们自己的一个宗教信仰。
And these killings are not being carried out by Buddhists or any relevant to Buddhist practice. So these are all non-Buddhist practices. And knowing the many lives that they have killed, these people really don't know that they will go straight to hell after they die. Even if they don't die at once, even if their karma hasn't been accumulated to such a level that they would go straight to hell, their negative actions are still going to cause them to take big birth as a hawk, wolves, or the predator type of existence.
这些就是以前我们在外前习里面讲的因果无错乱里面，我们都有讲过嘛，异手果啊、等流果啊，这些就是这样。如果说这个人潜意识就是常常喜欢杀生的人的话，那可能他就是死了以后到了地狱，承受了很多的这个痛苦，然后他的这个业障轻了一点点的时候呢，然后就又投身到或者是动物里面或者人里面。就又变成就是常常喜欢杀生，这就等流果，因为他的这个业力，然后呢，因为这个业力再会下地狱，等流果，异手果也就是另外一个他的一个果报，他就是因为杀生，还要承受那个痛苦，等等的这些因果真的是很可怕的一件事情，所以呢，如果是一个潜意识喜欢撒谎的人，今生也就是莫名其妙没有必要他都不要撒谎，然后潜意识是喜欢偷盗的一个人的话，他今生就算有足够的吃的穿的，他也是就是从小就是喜欢这个偷东西，这样，这些都是一种自己的潜意识的这个业力而推动的，所以是业力是很可怕的，所以呢，我们在各一方面的这些业力都要仔细的忏悔。然后呢，如果是意识到有自己有这样的问题的时候，马上要做强烈的忏悔，这些都有些是就是等流果，就是这样来的。如果我们不忏悔的话，这个因果就是永远都会叫轮回的，这样它是不会自然就是毁灭掉或者自然就消失的。
So in the outer preliminaries teachings, we have talked about the principles of cause and effect, where we mentioned two types of negative actions. The effect of the 10 negative actions, which can be categorized into two different types. One is called the fully ripened effect, and the other is called the effect similar to the cause. So with someone who has accumulated the fully ripened effect, so for example, killing of such a massive scale, then beings who committed such a crime will go straight to hell, like the catapult, being catapulted into hell. So there's no immediate stay, they will go straight to hell once their existence has ended. And as their level of negativity has been purified to a certain degree, then they would ascend it to maybe the hungry ghost realm, and then in there they will continue to create and accumulate negativity, so then they will fall right back to hell once again. So they would be in this cycle of continuous suffering in the hell realm, and then ascend it a little bit, and then fall back again. And the effect similar to the cause, so these are the type of negativities that the consequence would be, for example, falling down to hell because they have committed the crime of killing. So that's the type of karma, the effect similar to the cause. So it's destined to happen no matter what. Because you kill, you will have to bear certain consequences. And there's no negotiation about that. So, for example, if someone who are kind of born as a liar, who are so used to lying on the face of people, or someone who is so prone to stealing, and they very well have been born or existed before in the same way. So then when they come to this life, it's only their natural habitual predisposition for them to continue to act in such a way, in such a manner. So for their next lifetime, they will also experience the same type of behavior. So it's almost like their nature. And this is all because they have this strong habitual predisposition accumulated from their past lives. And that is the aspect of the karma, the cause and effect, that we can't really overlook at all. So again, be mindful of yourself, be this observer of your own way of being. If you notice, become aware of any similar problem, then confess right away, and then become mindful and going forward, even before you conduct such an act again. Karma is not going to dissipate all by itself. It has to be recognized and it has to be confessed.
ski rum to wonbo nanji samchu tong chongchu shubetse origin sanji ni ba banchin bama mata kanchi shangchu sehona so ba lopan nanji wonbo yela zigni wonbo yela zigni tuk shinde margate tambar chila tomba ni mo chulu chila shilu